Yep, I completely agree. And I think Reawakened should be the favorites going into this. I mean, we just saw uh, Toxic Youth struggling with another RMD. This is the combat specialization now, which I think is generally recognized as the strongest specialization in this particular matchup. So it will be interesting. Of course, you can never count out a turbo cleave of this magnitude. These players are so experienced, and they've certainly so experienced with RMD. They've battled a lot of RMD in their time. We do see the opener onto Swap XC. This is conventional CC coming out of Reawakened. They're doing so much damage to Swap. So he has to support the healing cooldowns as well. He uses the Ascendance onto Minpoke. He gets locked on the clone. He might just go down instantly. The Trinket coming out, the Shadow Mail, barely enough to keep him alive. Excellent turnaround from Toxic Youth. And it looks like they're actually swapping over onto Nefo, though. He uses the leg sweep onto Waz to shut down some of that damage. And so much damage coming for both sides. Waz dropping down to 30% of recklessness out from Joe Fernandez, using his Blade Storm as well, just trying to avoid as much CC, get as much pressure as possible. They're swapping over onto Minpoke, possibly the charge done into the double fair. Waz is in a lot of trouble right now. They're trying to set up on Swapsy, but Minpoke's still in that fair. They can't really do anything, and Reawakened might have to block as well.
Yeah, they got a nice sheep, though, onto Joe Fernandez. Here comes the setup. Nefo caught into a Ring of Frost. Triple CC out for Reawakened. There goes the killing spree. It didn't actually do too much. A Vigilance over onto Swaps. He should be enough. Waz caught into a charge stun. He's got that combat readiness up. It should be enough to keep him alive, and they should turn their attention to somebody else. It seems like Minpoke for now, but Joe just can't stick to him, and he's trying to go back onto Raikou, who's in the doorway, and Raiku's actually taking a lot of damage. He's trying to get away with that blazing speed. He gets back to the middle of the map. Minpoke caught into a full Stormbolt, but with Waz still having this combat readiness up, isn't going to take a lot of damage. We see Raikou, though, is still the target. He doesn't really have a lot of mobility right now. He's just taking the damage. He's down below 40%. They go for the setup. Nefo nimbles out of the deep freeze. He shadow melts the sheep. He gets out of line of sight. We see Waz going for a step kick, but Nefo fakes the step kick. Nefo just playing like a god right there. Unfortunately, they had to trade the Shamanistic Rage regardless on Swapsy, and they're going to clone him up on it. So despite Nefo playing so well, Swapsy trading the cooldown regardless.
And that's one thing these guys like to do. They like to just kind of trade the cooldowns when they need to. I mean, maybe you can hold it sometimes, but for every time you hold it successfully, there's a time where you get punished for trying to hold it. So they do like to use their cooldowns early, but they might end up resulting in the game here. There's no breaks available for Nefo. We do see the Life Cocoon. Can they chunk through that? The AR coming out from Waz might be enough. He's the smoke bomb. This could easily be the game. He's down to 30%. The full Cyclone to follow it up. This will be the game. Reawakened taking a convincing game one. And other than for that scary start, they looked really strong in that particular game.
I mean, it was scary, but Minpoke only traded his trinket. Like, despite getting bursted down that hard, that was the only cooldown he traded. So, I mean, yeah, he might have had a minor heart attack, but in terms of, like, the actual value of his cooldowns, they didn't get anything. So, I don't know. That looked pretty rough. I feel like that Shamanistic Rage maybe was too preemptive, and then he didn't have any major damage reduction for Waz's big burst there at the end. I don't know. I mean, in that position, you wanted to just go 1-for-1 as the Enhancement Shaman, but I feel like Nefo played so well in that setup that he might have been able to be a little bit more greedy there.
Yeah, and I wonder how long was up on the Vigilance. I reckon Vigilance must have been available really shortly, so they probably had an incredibly small kill window there, but it was enough, and they certainly committed fully to the play. Minpoke pushing in for that Cyclone onto Nefo to seal the deal with Waz's offensive cooldowns, of course, up there. So they did have, it looked like they had a fair bit of overkill. Like, the game was very sealed before the Cyclone even landed. It did look like they were going to land the kill there. And that's one nice thing about watching a Reawakened's RMD. It's like, you can kind of tell when they're setting up for the kill, because everything just looks so clean most of the time. They have very few games where it's like a messy kill. Like, normally as the commentators, we can say, okay, they're probably going to kill on this setup, you know, and then they do kill it up. They rarely make mistakes on those kind of lethal swaps. So well played by Reawakened. Toxic Youth do have their map choice now, though, so it'd be interesting to see what they decide. We saw them pick Blade's Edge last time over Dalaran, but it didn't work out too well for them. I'm curious whether they're going to stick with the same thing, or if they're going to decide to go for a smaller map this time.
Yeah, I mean, they went with Blades, actually, the last time they lost. It didn't work very well for them. I don't think they would do that again. Then the next choice they had was Runes of Lordaeron, so I'm curious, maybe they just feel Runes of Lordaeron is a better map for themselves. I think it might be. Again, like, Nefo's doing a good job, like, breaking up CC on himself, but it seems like he's hardly ever able to, like, effectively get a leg sweep on somebody or paralyze into a Stormbolt or something. Like they have to get that chain if they really want any strong pressure other than just the consistent damage. Like they're relying more on just critting at the same time to kill somebody instead of trying to get it set up with a stun in a paralyze or get some sort of cross CC like that, because I don't know, it seems much faster with the combat spec. Like Waz is just running them into the ground, like gas pedaled completely to the ground, just like, all right, we're going fast, we're going now, and Waz just runs them over. So I don't know.
I would like to see them trying to set up a bit. I mean, we did say it a couple of times towards the end of the last series, where Nefer would in-cap, then Joe Fernandez would Stormbolt the Rogue even, and they would try to get pressure onto onto Akko Suichi that way. But Waz is running the combat specialization, which, if anything, means he has less defensive cooldowns, because he has to commit those vanishes offensively so often that really it's only the evasions. I'm not even sure that he's running the combat readiness, so I think they could definitely look for kills on Waz. They could definitely try set up small CC chains from Nefo onto Minpoike, maybe even pushing in for the leg sweep, just to deny his healing for the maximum amount of time, and then try kill Waz like that. They came quite close to killing Poike last game. They did almost kill him in the opener with all their offensives, but once he survived that, they didn't look too threatening. Maybe they need to try make those confident plays, and maybe they feel like Blade's Edge is the kind of map where they can get those like double, triple leg sweeps and go for those kills. But last game they were killed quite quickly, so.
We see a sap on Nefo, a cheap shot on Joe into the full sheep. It's a 3v1 situation. Reawakened playing a very textbook game of RMD. Swapsy's going to trade out a Shamanistic Rage. He's hoping that will be enough, but with a full blind on Nefo, I think he's going to have to Trinket. And now with that overlap of Trinket and Shaman Rage, that opens up Swapsy moving forward. They could maybe even swap to Nefo. It seems like they're splitting their damage a little bit here. In the meantime, Minpoike was forced to Ironbark Raikou. Waz was forced to Evasion. Waz still taking a lot of damage. Colossus smashes up. He's just getting torn apart by Joe. Down below 40% HP. Minpoike struggling to keep him alive. Now popping that Heart of the Wild. It should be enough to keep his team going here. And like I said, this next setup could easily be Swapsy's life. Joe needs to be very careful with how he uses his Vigilance here for the next stun rotation. Waz is pretty close. I think they're about to go for the kidney shot, but Raikou gets reflected on the sheep. This is just slowing down their go a little bit. Raikou actually was forced to Trinket. Minpoike caught into a Stormbolt right before their go. Will Minpoike be able to follow up with a clone is the question. He's going for it, and Joe doesn't have a reflect. He gets the clone. 3v1 on Swapsy, but that Life Cocoon doing a lot of damage mitigation. He's going to survive. They managed to finally break through that cocoon. Swapsy's going to trade out the Ascendants. They're going on the aggro mode right now to Minpoike. Minpoike blinks away. He's not going to fall to that damage. Raikou blinking away now as well, and Swapsy's kind of in an awkward position. Do they decide to push in? They Typhoon Joe off, but Joe with that clutch leap got right back up before getting knocked down.
Yeah, Joe Fernandez is doing a great job of maxing his uptime, and we can see it. The dividends of it paying off on Waz right now. He's used to the Sham Rage, but the Sham Rule, but he is dropping quite low. We do see them swapping to Raikou. They might force the Ice Block, the NS coming out barely in time from Minpoike. A good hold there by them, but at the same time, Nefo caught into the Deep Freeze. We do see both members of Toxic Youth dropping quite low right now. The parry hang to come out from Joe Fernandez as well, the Sham Rage from Swapexy. The Cyclone to follow that up onto Nefo. Good cross CC coming out from Reawakened. They do force a lot of cooldowns there, and again, Swapsy doesn't have too much to answer this right now. The Life Cocoons should be available soon from Nefo, but the Smoke Bomb coming out might deny that. He has to Trinket out of the kidney, but Minpoike also dropping low. Both sides under a fair amount of pressure right now. Raikou also dropping low. Swapsy looks like he's going to stabilize with the Trinket on the Smoke Bomb. Well played by him. Nefo able to top him off. That does mean the Life Cocoon should be available on the next swap. Of course, Trinket will be available for that blind as well. So a good trade of cooldowns earlier, it means that the cooldowns are back available for Toxic Youth. And Reawakened, they're looking quite stable right now, but Minpoike did have to blow his Trinket to keep his team alive there. And it looks like Raikou's taking quite a bit of pressure, even when they're going offensive.
Yep, Swapsy getting cloned up, though, at low HP. Deep Freeze not available. I think Nefo should be able... Oh, they've got the blind instead. Waz stepping back. Where's the kidney shot, though? Just no stun following it up just yet. Nefo trinkets out of that blind for free, and I was surprised not to see the kidney shot there onto Swapsy. I wonder where it actually went. It seems like Waz is now taking quite a bit of pressure. They're just chasing Raikou down. He's going to root both of the melee, trying to build up some icicles, and a pre-reflect on that cheap shot comes up, and Minpoike sees it, moonfires it off, gets the full clone with the full sheep on Nefo, forcing this Life Cocoon onto Swapsy, but I don't even think the Life Cocoon will be enough. Life Cocoon really isn't a significant cooldown against the combat rogue, and they're actually just choosing to clone up Swapsy. I'm wondering if he wants to rotate it over. It looks like he can't. He's just getting pressured. Minpoike's on the run, gets caught in the charge run, barely Barskinning in time. He gets the NS off to get himself out of execute range. He's narrowly dodging Joe's recklessness there. He almost got finished off. Now switching their attention over onto Waz. He's down below half HP. It seems like Minpoike is actually struggling very hard at the moment. They do get the full clone, they get the sheep, they get the clean 3v1 setup onto Swapsy, and this Shamanistic Rage doesn't look to be enough. Joe trinkets out, he uses the rallying cry. That's still not looking to be enough. A full fear on him in Minpoike. They're trying to stop the CC. Nefo shadow melts to avoid a sheep. They're trying to get Swapsy topped off. They're trying to turn this momentum around onto Minpoike. Minpoike has no bark skin and no trinket. Maybe they could get a kill onto him. He's down to 35%. He uses the Iron Bark. He's barely escaping death every time. We see a pre-life cocoon over onto Swapsy, but with no trinket on Joe, it's going to be very hard for him to get a vigilance on the next setup.
Yeah, that trinket was very clutch from Joe. He definitely needed to do it. He could not hold on any longer. Swapsy would have died for sure. And now they're the team that's offensive. They actually forced the block onto Raikou. But like you say, there's not many cooldowns available for them. There's no trinket on Nefo, no trinket on Joe. The Sham Rage isn't up for 10 seconds. This could potentially be the kill. But a nice nimble on the deep freeze into the incap on Raikou does deny any incoming CC. A nice stun to follow that up. Since he does not have the blink, of course, he has to blink in to commit to get the deep freeze in the first place. And now you can see Nefo just kind of positioning downstairs. He knows if Raikou follows him, he can just pour it up. And Waz is taking so much damage right now that combat readiness barely enough to keep him alive, sitting at about 20% HP for a second there. He does now get a nest, and look at Minpoike's mana. He's down to about 25%. Reawakened are struggling. Dampening's going to start kicking in here, and Swapsy does have the Sham Rage available. Nefo's trinkets back. They do have cooldowns to answer the next go, and this will be the Sham Rage from SwapXC. A nice cross CC from Reawakened though. Maybe they can go for it. So much damage actually. It looks like they don't even care. He's down to 30%. The NG has already procced. It looks like Swapsy just trying to keep himself alive. The trinket comes out in the blind again from Nefo, and again Toxic Youth having to use a bunch of cooldowns. The low Cyclone is going to mean that if they can rotate it onto Nefo, maybe they can get the kill. By a nice defensive fear from Joe Fernandez once again there when his team needs him. And if they can maybe get some pressure onto Minpoike here, his mana is so low, it looks like, well, Reawakened can win the game so soon. There's so little cooldowns left for Toxic Youth, but at the same time, they're never stable anymore.
Yeah, this is a 3v1 onto Swapsy, but every time Swapsy's in a 3v1, he just goes ham. He's going so hard on him in Minpoike. Minpoike's forced to Barskin. Will that even be enough? He's almost in execute range. The leg sweep follows it up. Waz is stuck sitting through that as well. Minpoike's barely escaping in that bear form. Swapsy getting sheeped up. Raikou trying to peel for his team right now. Waz is dipping dangerously low, trades out that evasion to dodge the attacks. Immediately, Joe just swapping over on Raikou, but he gets knocked off by Minpoike. He's going to have to waddle back up the ramp, so far away from his team right now. Swapsy using that Shamanistic Rage. The smoke bomb gets dropped. They are all in onto Swapsy. I don't think it'll be enough. Joe trinkets, they overlap it with the Vigilance. Will that even be enough to keep Swapsy alive? It doesn't look like it's going to be. They're just doing so much damage. And Reawakened are going to take game number 2, and they're 1 game away from advancing.
It's weird to say it because it's not one of those abilities that you genuinely see winning you the game, but I really think the Typhoon at the end knocking Joe off was the reason they were able to get that kill, because the Vigilance was available. Joe wasn't even put into CC there. He could have easily stopped the CC just like he has done time and time again, but Minpoike just able to put him out the game to something that he can't even trinket, just knocked off the entire map, unable to do anything. So Typhoon really showing up strong, excellent awareness from Minpoike, able to assure that Joe was out the game there, and that was really what landed them the kill, because there was a lot of cooldowns, or there wasn't a lot, but there were answers still on Toxic Youth with Joe's trinket, his vigilance, his ability to stop CC, and Minpoike just completely shut that down there.
Yeah, the map backfired on them. I was surprised that they picked Blade's Edge again. I think that they're afraid of Nefo getting swapped to. That's the only thing that makes me think that they're picking that map every time as their first choice, because that does not feel like a good map for them, especially after seeing Joe get knocked down like that. Like,
there were a few times they had pressure, but I don't think it's due to the map particularly. I think if they just pick Dalaran or pick Ruins or something like that, surely it's safer for them. I mean, a couple of times they weren't really able to exploit the Nox, but at the same time, Nefo's not really able to exploit the 2-tier either. So I'm slightly confused about this pick, and twice now it's cost them. They, of course, lost Kenitra Tigers there, and they've lost now to Reawakened there. I'm not sure about it as your #1 map choice coming out as the Turbo, but I mean, it was a close game. They definitely came close to killing Minpoike. Waz and Raikou were also dropping low. They had good pressure this game, and they were ooming Poike. They had him at about 20% mana for quite a long period of time, but it wasn't enough for them to secure the game, and now they're facing elimination into the lower bracket once more, 2-0 down, but this isn't the first time today that's happened.
They're actually in the same position just against Canadian Tigers earlier, but with this combat specialization, that life cocoon just seems almost worthless. Like overall, it gives them like a couple of seconds to live, but at that point, it's like it seems like it's no better than a power word shield almost. So I don't know if Swapsy's going to be able to survive. Even there at the end, I mean, maybe he should have just Trinket Vigilance right away, but that's a hard thing to guess. Like, do I Trinket Vigilance right away when you use Sham Rage, or do I have to? Should I wait? Like, that was a really awkward situation for them to decide to use their cooldowns. And it seemed like Waz and Raikou just had so much damage lined up that it wasn't enough. So now we're going to be jumping into Ruins of Lordaeron, so a much more close quarter map. Swapsy and Joe Fernandez will be able to hit every target much easier here. I think that's smart.
Yep, and this is the map I would like to see them picking first before Blade's Edge, because I actually think in the end of that game, it only really happened once that Joe got knocked off, but I think it legitimately cost them the game. I think the game was going completely okay until that point, and then one little play like that actually cost them the game, and that couldn't have happened on any other map. So I really like the fact they've brought it to Ruins now. I think that's a really good place for them with this smaller map, of course, meaning they can even swap it over into Minpoke easier. So
yeah, I'm curious to see if they go after Minpoke this match, or who their main target's going to be. Like, as Turbo, you kind of have a priority target and then a backup target based on the way the game is going. If you're playing defensively, you're mostly hitting the Rogue. If you're playing aggressively, you want to be attacking the Druid. So depending on how much CC they break up, it will determine if they can attack Poike more. But we see Waz getting an early sap. Cheap shot on Joe Fernandez. And Poike should look for a clone. Actually go for the Sheep instead, so saving a little bit of CC. Now following up with a clone, following a deep freeze over on the Nefo into the half Sheep. And Swapsy's looking like he's just going to go down through Shamanistic Rage. Waz is doing so much damage here. Swapsy forced to pop his Ascendance. They're trying to counter pressure at the same time, but he's dipping so low here. A defensive fear comes out. Waz trinkets that to try and all in. Maybe that trinket is something they can punish moving forward, because Swapsy's going to survive.
yeah, and Toxic Youth, even though they dropped really low there, it was quite calculated from them. Swapsy popped his healing cooldowns. I'm sure they knew that they were going to be okay. It wasn't that close. He was at about 6%. So maybe they were trying to bait those offensive overcommitments from Reawakened. They do have to use the trinket on the blind. That's a story we've seen before, but besides the smoke bomb, there's not really any ways to stop the cocoon from Nefo. So I'm expecting to see the smoke bomb coming out from Waz, but he just can't do it right now. He just stormbotted preemptively from Joe Fernandez. That's going to allow Swapsy a bit of time, but it actually means that he has to use the Trinket Vigilance, because they couldn't get the life cocoon off there, because Swapsy didn't get put into the kidney instantly, so Nefo didn't want to commit it, which means that the Trinket has to come out, and they could even kill through this. Nefo fought into the Cyclone here. He could just go down. Swapsy in so much trouble, down to 10%. The Rallying Cry barely coming out. The cocoon comes out on 4% HP. I cannot believe they managed to get it off, but they're killing through life cocoon. They're killing through Rally. They're killing through the Sham Rage. He barely was able to survive there. Raikou being forced into the block might have literally been the only thing that kept Swapsy alive and kept Toxic Youth in this game.
Yeah, and now they don't really have a lot to stay alive, so I wouldn't be surprised to see Swapsy maybe run away. It doesn't seem to be his playstyle. He seems to be just like, me no run, me attack kind of an enhancement shaman player. He does not like running away, and he's just in the center of the map, and this next setup could easily be lethal. It seems to be pressuring Raikou fairly well right now. Full Stormbolt over onto Waz. They're trying to deny the setup. They've managed to pause the kidney shot for a few seconds, but they get the Sheep. They get the clone. It's a 3v1. Did he dodge the kidney? I think he dodged the kidney shot from Waz, or he did it on the wrong target. I'm not sure, but without that stun, Swapsy is going to be able to get away here for a few more seconds. They follow up with the Garrote Sounds. They clone him up at low HP. Great clone. Swapsy knows that. He trinkets out. He needs Nefo to top him off. Now they're trying to counter pressure Raikou. Raikou and Minpoke kind of split up right now. They're trying to get back together. A full bash over on a Nefo, but Minpoke into a storm. But Waz in trouble. Uses that combat readiness, but if he goes in execute range, it just won't matter. He's forced to overlap it with the evasion. A full leap fear over on Minpoke, and Raikou unfortunately broke on Minpoke. He would have liked to see that sit a little bit longer. Raikou has 5 icicles though for the next attack. Swapsy's Shamanistic Rage is the main defensive cooldown for him to survive here. A full blind on Nefo, a full clone on Joe. It's a 3v1. Swapsy, he needs the Shaman Rage. He's going to use the Shaman Rage on the kidney shot, but the killing spree comes out. I don't even know if it's going to be enough. Just so much damage following up. Nefo trinkets out of the Sheep. He gets the life cocoon, but he gets deeped on his trinket. Is the life cocoon even going to be enough? Nefo desperately trying to pick him back up, getting some heals here. He has to fake the interrupts though. There's so many interrupts for him. He's going to paralyze Minpoke, trying to deny any more cyclones, but Joe just caught in a Sheep over here in the middle of the map, just not able to help his team at all. Now into another Sheep. Swapsy still maybe in a bit of trouble here. The next deep freeze could easily be the game.
Yeah, this is desperate days for Toxic Youth. Every single time Reawakened push, it seems like Toxic Youth have to answer with not one but two defensive coins, and that's just not sustainable. They aren't trading efficiently, and the fact that they have to keep using the Shamrage and the Life Cocoon means they're not going to be available, and this could be the swap potentially, but a nice nimble from Nefo on the deep freeze means he's able to avoid the CC. The Cyclone reflects onto Minpoike from Joe. Joe did use the Trinket for that, but it does mean that they survive another go. This means there's no breaks available for the longest time, though. There is the Shamrage. Maybe they could even swap it over onto Joe. It looks like that's something they're potentially interested in. He's at about 60% HP right now. He's going to have to like pre-parry or something like that because there's no Trinket for him. There's no Trinket for Nefo. They could definitely kill him. But at the same time, Reawakened under a certain amount of pressure, the fear coming out onto Minpoike, surely that's going to be the block. They're actually turning it onto Waz. Waz doesn't have many cooldowns. The NS coming out from Minpoike, he had to use his Trinket there as well. And Raikou gets locked on Frost. He could go down before the block here. He's down to 20% HP. He should have that lockout available. The smoke bomb coming out from Waz, perhaps even defensively. It only really gets the Shamrage from SwapXC, and a good spell of pressure from Toxic Youth actually keeps them in this game.
Yeah, Raikou's still in trouble. He may need to block here. He's going to use that Ice Block, and Waz is in trouble as well. He's forced to use the Vanish. If they could find Waz, they could finish him off. It doesn't look like they can. Cheap shots onto Joe. Minpoike chains that into the clone. Raikou doesn't have deep, though, so this setup is a little bit broken up. If they can avoid getting crowd controlled, maybe they could push forward. Raikou with one more block, though, should be sitting pretty comfortable. Waz with an evasion as well, so I would imagine Reawakened are still going to push forward. They might want to wait for the hypothermia of Raikou, though. We see a setup on the swap. There's the kidney shot. Nefo caught in the blind. Joe Fernandez trying to intervene the sap. They're going to use the deep freeze instead, try and follow it up with a sheep. They don't manage to get the sheep in time, and Nefo gets that life cocoon, and now Swapsy with that life cocoon is going on offense. Minpoike in trouble, blinks back to the room, barely escaping death. Swapsy trying to turn his attention maybe onto Waz here, but still with that evasion, he should be alright. He's choosing not to use it just yet. He's down to about half HP. Here comes the combat readiness instead to reduce damage. Joe going for that Stormbolt, trying to connect onto Raikou, gets rooted up. Nice dispel, I think, by Nefo. Is going to allow him to stick a little bit longer, but with this combat readiness, Waz is just so hard to kill. We see a charge over onto Raikou. Minpoike, he's getting poised and ready for a clone here, I would imagine. There's the cheap shot. Minpoike gets wind sheared right before the cheap shot. He can't follow up. He goes for the bash instead. He's looking for the clone. He doesn't manage to get it. He gets pummeled on it. Great job breaking up that CC. It might be the only thing that keeps Swapsy alive right now. That Shamrage doesn't look to be enough by itself. Now shutting down Minpoike's clone with a Stormbolt. Really good shutdowns on Minpoike. Now caught into a charge stun, caught into a paralyzed. Raikou in trouble. If they lock him on Frost and can connect, maybe they can take him down.
Yeah, and Raikou could have to block here. Surely he's going to have to. He's down below 20%, and there's the final ice block for this team. Minpoike's Trinket is really the only cooldown, but Waz is at 20%. He could just go down here. The evasion coming out on 11%. They're going to be spamming the execute. Look at Joe's bar. Execute, execute. He just wants to kill him. Raikou's dead. Waz is the one that falls, though. Raikou had to come out the block to peel him out. Either of them could have died there, and Toxic Youth, like, this is why I want to see them picking these maps, because they can swap around so easily. They get so much pressure. It's not about the fact that they can or can't survive. I feel like they are going to struggle to survive on any map. It doesn't matter what the map is. The thing is, they can get so much pressure here. They can just swap it between Waz, they can swap between Raikou, they can even hit Minpoike when they want to. It's easier for Nefo to get the incaps. There's so many reasons why these small maps are so nice for them, and this is the second time we've seen them just kind of take down an RMD on Ruins. They just look so confident here, but because they've already kind of thrown a game away on Blade's Edge, they may not even get to Dalaran.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be able to make it, because now they're going to have to beat them on Tolvaron Arena, which is, I would still say, favored for the Rogue Mage Druid. As it's just such a big map, it can be hard to avoid the crowd control chains. If you get pulled out into the middle of the map, you really expose yourself. But that breakup of CC right at the end was so important. Like, Swapsy interrupted the regrowth on Minpoike right at the same time that Joe got cheap shot, which is a cheap shot to set up for a clone. Minpoike was forced to use a half bash, but the bash wasn't long enough, and then Joe was able to pummel the clone, and he was able to charge and fear Waz to stop him from dealing damage at the same time. Like, everything went so perfect for them right in that last moment to be able to turn the match around. I actually can't believe how close that was.
Yeah, I think at the end of the game, Minpoike actually had a disconnect issue. So, like, we saw him moving his character just before Raikou went into the block, but over the last 5 seconds, it was like there was so much hype we were just watching as the two players were dropping lower and lower. But yeah, in the end, I think Minpoike did have a DC, and maybe that's what, well, I mean, I guess that's probably what finished off the game for them, because they didn't receive heals for a good 5 to 10 seconds at the end of the game. But they did have CC onto him at the same time, so maybe they would have gone down anyways. But unfortunate for Reawakened, they're going to be slightly upset at the fact that the the DC may well have cost them that game. So we're going to go into the next game. I think we can expect a big map regardless, and if they can stay online, I think Reawakened are in quite a strong position to take this series.
I mean, they were pretty close just even in that match, so I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It seemed like they got a lot more CC on Minpoike, just even at the scoreboard. Like, Minpoike set a minute of CC. So, like, Joe setting up those fears on him seemed to be doing really well throughout the entire game. And then Nefo is getting a lot more paralyzes. I still feel like maybe they could set up that a little bit more. It seems like Nefo wants to be behind the pillar. That way Raikou has to blink in if he wants to deep freeze. And then as soon as Raikou blinks in, he's already given up a gap closer, and then Joe can connect a lot easier. So I don't really blame him for wanting to like try and sit back and wait for that opportunity, but they can't really capitalize on kill opportunities, and that means that Waz and Raikou often have more cooldowns than they might have if he was able to get more CC.
Yeah, and I think like we come down to this. This is the exact same situation we actually saw Joe in the last series. It's like if they can somehow, some way win on this map, I feel like they have such a strong. They'll have so much momentum. They will be able to. They'll be playing on a more favorable map for them next game. It still won't be favorable. I think it'll be something like Tigers, but it's certainly going to be better than this. But this is such an uphill struggle. I mean. They are creating the plays that can win them the game, but every single time they come so close, they don't ever seem to quite get the kill. Like Waz always has an answer, he always has an evasion on 10% or a vanish or something like that. Raikou has a block, Minpoike somehow gets away with a displacer beast or something like this. Like they're getting the team into execute range even, so it must be so frustrating for Joe Fernandez in particular when he can't quite press that button. He's so close, he knows he can win the game if he can just press one more button on his kill target, but every single time these RMDs seem to be slippery enough that they can just about get away. And the question's going to be whether that can happen on this map. This is going to be the hardest map for them to actually finish off Reawakened, but Reawakened aren't the kind of team to run very much, so I think there are teams you don't want to meet on Tolve slightly more than this one.
Yeah, Waz is moving forward, looking for that sap. Sap's Nefo. Cheap shot on Joe Fernandez. A clean opener for Reawakened here. They do manage to sheep Joe. Are they going to follow up a sheep on Nefo or a clone? Looks like they're going to deep him, and Poike is going to clone up Joe Fernandez. They follow up with a sheep, and Swapsy's looking like he's in a lot of trouble. Smoke bomb gets dropped. He trinkets into another stun. That Shamanistic Rage and Ascendance Healing has to be enough to keep him alive right here. He's down to 19%, forced to use that gift to the Naru. He's just going completely on offense towards Minpoike, and Minpoike doesn't even have to trade out a single cooldown. Nefo moving in, gets the paralyzed. Raikou caught into a store ball. He's locked on Frost for a second there, forced to use his ice block, and you see just one paralyzed there from Nefo, forced a huge cooldown from Raikou.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that was actually a pretty okay opening for Toxic Eve. They did use Swapsy's Trinket, which is one more cooldown than they might normally, but it was in exchange for the Smoke Bomb, so that's pretty okay for them. Nefo still has his Cocoon, his Trinket. Joe, of course, has the Trinket Vigilance available, so they do have answers. The Iron Bark now being forced onto Raikou. There's a lot of damage going into Raikou. The Killing Spree, however, coming out from Waz. They're going for the kill on Swapsy. He's slightly out of LOS, so they can't get the Life Cocoon. It would suck if he has to use his Trinket here, but the Vigilance coming out might be enough to hold it. They need to stop the re-CC. They do get the pummel onto Arcane of Raikou. Can they stop the Cyclone as well? The Cyclone onto Swapsy is going to be so detrimental for Toxic Youth. They need to cross-CC it though onto Nefo if they can. This triples clone's going to come out from Minpoike here, but do they have follow-up? The cheap shot from Waz, he instantly grows the Nimble, pre-grading that Nimble. Such good plays from Waz there, but can they get the kill with it? The Rallying Cry, the triple DR clone into the full sheep on Nefo. This could easily be the game. He doesn't have Trinket, Rally's going to fall. This is going to be it. Swapsy's going to go down here, and he does fall. An excellent Garrod. Really reading Nefo's plays there from Waz. I really think that was the thing that won them the game, because he didn't get the opportunity to press the Life Cocoon. Just because of that one play, he saw that he was going to nimble out of the stun and instantly Garroded his Trinket, like pre-Garroded it if anything, because of course Garrod doesn't break that, and an excellent read from Waz, and that's going to put Reawakened through to tomorrow's upper bracket final as well.
I need a better Waz accent. Pre-Garrod the Nimble! Pre-Garrod the Nimble! Easy game! Easy game!
Like, the only thing I can say from Waz is kill an opener, because I've heard that so many times. But yeah, that was a really clutch play from him, and that's something that not many people would have necessarily gone for. Like, not only he could have just Garroded, to be honest, and not forced the Nimble, but instead he decides to cheap shot to force the Nimble, because even if they don't get the kill there, it's like he knows that they're going to have no cooldowns going into the next setup. So really nice from Maz. I really like those kinds of little niches you don't always see, but in the end, on occasion, that's going to win you the game, and it did just there. So.
All right.
Let's see if we have our next teams ready.